Hello, and welcome to video 42A of a two-part series exposing how the Jesuit Vatican shadow empire conquered the world, continent by continent, over the last 5 centuries. And before I do this, I would like to read a few excerpts from the Jesuits' fourth bloody oath of induction, as found in the U.S. Library of Congress. This will demonstrate to you the absolute malevolence of the Jesuit military order of Rome and the animosity that they harbor toward humanity as a whole and Christians and Jews in particular. This program of human destruction hasn't let up for 500 years. The Jesuits have been and are still behind all human conflicts. And it's important to understand this, otherwise you'll have no idea of who's causing all the problems. These are not minor conflicts between people, as most people essentially can live in peace. These are major conflicts stirred up from behind the scenes to divide tribes and nations and ethnic groups of people. And it's done with the purpose of weakening and dividing populations in order that they might be subverted, infiltrated, subverted, and eventually controlled. And that's what it's always been about. It's been about world control. And this is being done from behind the scenes. This is not being done outwardly in the open. It's being done from behind the scenes through an hierarchy of power, a pyramid power structure that brings us into existence. So now I'm reading from this fourth bloody oath of induction that the Jesuits take when they reach the final level after at least 30 years of intensive brainwashing and academic study. And I quote, "My son, heretofore you have been taught to act as the dissembler among Roman Catholics, to be a Roman Catholic, and to be a spy even among your own brethren, to believe no man, to trust no man, among the reformers to be a reformer, among the Huguenots to be a Huguenot, among the Calvinists to be a Calvinist, among other Protestants generally to be a Protestant." These are cloak and dagger, undercover agents working within all religious systems to subvert, infiltrate, subvert, and destroy or corrupt from within. And that is what has been occurring over the last 5 centuries. And I continue, and obtaining their confidence, that is the confidence of the people they are attempting to subvert and destroy, to seek even to preach from their pulpits and to denounce with all the vehemence in your nature our holy religion and the Pope, and even to descend so low as to become a Jew among Jews. This is how much they hate the Jews. To descend so low as to become a Jew among Jews. This is where anti-Semitism comes from. This is the root. Do not believe anything people tell you about the Jews killing the Jews. It's nonsense. I continue, that you might be enabled to gather together all information for the benefit of your order as a faithful soldier of the Pope. The Jesuits are undercover soldiers and spies. They are not a pious priestly order. Very important to understand this. I continue. "Therefore, to the utmost of my power," and this is what the inductee will then confess, "therefore, to the utmost of my power, I will defend this doctrine." What doctrine? The Roman Catholic teachings and His holiness. What holiness? The Pope. His holiness's right and custom against all usurpers of the heretical or Protestant authority, whatever, especially the Lutheran Church of Germany, Holland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, and the now pretended authority and churches of England and Scotland, and the branches of same, now established in Ireland and on the continent of America and elsewhere, and all adherents in regard that they may be usurped and heretical, opposing the Sacred Mother Church of Rome. This is what they've sworn to do, to infiltrate and bring down anything, any structure, anyone that does not bow their knee to Rome. And I continue. I do now denounce and disown any allegiance as due to any heretical king, prince, or state, named Protestant or liberal, or obedience to any of their laws, magistrates, or officers. They have no allegiance to national sovereignty, national powers. None. They take their orders only from Rome. That is what makes them so dangerous. They owe allegiance to no nation, to no government, to no ethnic group. Zero. And it is this that makes the Jesuits so dangerous. And this is how they've infiltrated everything. They have become anything to get in and to subvert it from within. People have no idea where the Jesuits are. They are undercover. They are the original undercover agents. They do not have to wear a black priestly robe to be a Jesuit. They can go in any guise they want and be anything they want. They are the ultimate chameleons. I continue. I do further declare the doctrine of the churches of England and Scotland, of the Calvinists, Huguenots, and others of the name of Protestants or Masons, to be damnable, and they themselves to be damned, who will not forsake the same. Now, I'm pointing out here the Masons. You can just ignore that because most Jesuits are Masons, if not all. Freemasonry and Jesuitry goes hand in hand because they are both occultic, secret religions. So this part of the Jesuit oath does not apply, in my opinion. I continue. And this is where the order is to deliberately and maliciously infiltrate and deceive. And this is what the inductee further declares. And I quote, I do further promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly and openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and Masons, as I am directed to do, to extirpate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, nor condition, and that I will hang, burn, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate their execrable race. Think about that. That is what we have seen in every genocide and revolution and war in the last 500 years, while the Jesuits have been in existence. It is they who are doing all these things. And I continue. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poisonous cup, the strangulation cord, the stela of the knife, or poignard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agents of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Father of the Society of Jesus, known as the Black Pope or the Jesuit Superior General. This is what they have been doing, assassinating, murdering heads of state, presidents, prime ministers, anyone that they want to remove from their path to total control and power. Anyone who does not cooperate will be done away with, usually with poison or the bullet or accidents. Accidental plane crashes, accidental car crashes, accidental drownings, suicides. How many of these have we seen even in the last 50 years? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people have been exterminated by the Jesuits in order for them to achieve their goals. Make no mistake about it, it is the Jesuits behind all of these incidents. And I finished the quote there. Dear people, this video is not intended to be an in-depth study, as space does not permit, but a rather cursory overview of a very detailed subject, providing a structure with enough information to draw your own personal conclusions about the Jesuitical Roman fourth beast of Daniel, conquest of mankind. If you've had the chance to listen to any other videos I've recorded, then you would gradually be getting an understanding that no world event happens by accident. As crazy as it may sound, even the weather is controlled by NASA, which is a Jesuit agency, via thousands of high-tech wet surface air coolers, or WSAC, and NEXRAD, Doppler radar installations across the world. Now you can go to the internet and you can check this yourself. There is thousands and thousands and thousands of NEXRAD Doppler radar installations across the world directing the weather through high-tech electromagnetic signals. It's not a joke, people. And the American military have actually come out and declared this. They've actually said it, that they can control the weather. And these wet surface air coolers across the world, there's more than 60,000 of these installations. All they do is make water vapor. They make clouds, which are then directed into becoming storm formations, which are then used to smash and hit countries. That's what they've been doing, people, with massive earthquakes. They can do this with their HARP installations. They can direct the weather. They can create and intensify storms, typhoons, hurricanes, tornadoes, and direct them using Doppler radar systems to where they want them to do the maximum amount of damage. This is no joke. This is not fantasy. This has been happening for years, since they've learned how to do this in probably the late 40s and 50s. They have been doing this with increasing intensity to achieve their goals of smashing communities and nations. It is a very, very serious issue. So a lot of the weather we see today, the weird weather, the weather anomalies, are not normal. Yes, they're not normal because they're probably man-made. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. My point is this: if the power to control weather is in the hands of a ruling elite, then anything and everything else has also already been subjected to their control. This is just common sense, people. Please wake up and have a look around and see all the weirdness that is happening. These are the last days, and the technologies that are available to the Jesuits, which they have developed through their military systems, their military industrial installations, they have managed to create technologies that we know nothing about. Virtually nothing. They are used as weapons against humanity. At this point, I would like to make an essential clarification. The terms Christian or Christianity are constantly misused to identify Roman Catholics and Roman pagan religion. This is incorrect. Roman Catholicism is not, and I repeat, is not Christian in any way, shape, or form. has nothing to do with Christianity. The rituals, pagan doctrines, and hierarchical structure of the Roman temple cult organization are pagan, Babylonian, and contrary to biblical truth. This must be understood from the outset, or there will be confusion in the minds of readers or listeners in understanding what is being said here. How did the Jesuits take world control? The power to coordinate such an operation is breathtaking in scope and reveals the extent to which all world systems are controlled by one covert ruling body. This is accomplished by a compartmentalized, multi-tiered power structure of roundtable groups, governmental bodies, world bodies, military bodies, intelligence agencies, and private industry. And these are all overseen by Masonic societies, controlled from the top down by the Jesuits who sit at the top. The horrifying fourth oath taken by the Jesuits allows them to kill and destroy without conscience, under orders of the superior general or Black Pope, and for the glory of the Roman Catholic cult of Rome. They are building their one world empire and have been for a long, long time. This stretches across centuries and millennia. It is a long-term project, but they are nearing completion. So, this is a warning to you, if you have not heard this before, to wake up and look around and get the truth about what is happening in the world today. There is not a lot of time left before it all comes crumbling down. Failure to grasp the existence of this power structure, as incomprehensible as it may be, reduces the truth of reality into a range of conspiracy fictions, leading inevitably to deception. Dear listener, for a conspiracy of this magnitude to succeed, only one group can be in control. I repeat, only one. There is no conflict of interest. There is one group controlling. That is why they are so successful in doing what they have done. There aren't multiple parties competing with each other. No, no, no. It's all controlled from the top down through various levels of compartmentalization. Many people do not know they are working for Rome. They are given a job to do. They do it. They do not know that the ultimate goal of the work that they are doing is further world control. That is how it's done, how people are kept in the dark. Only those at the top understand the full agenda. Common sense dictates again that such a scenario of competing interests of many groups fighting with each other simply could not succeed. No one divided against themselves can succeed. This is how the Jesuits have been so successful. They have managed to divide others while remaining a cohesive single group themselves over 5 centuries. This is how they've done it. They are a cohesive group with one single mind and one single purpose, and that is total world control of all people and all systems. Only the open, inquiring mind will be humble enough to put aside cherished personal opinions for the sake of acquiring the pearl of great price, which is truth. So forget about the banking elites. Forget about the Jews. Forget about the Masons. It is the Jesuits who sit at the top and control every facet of human endeavor. And it can be proven. Listen to A.J. Wiley's warning below about the Jesuits from 1878. And this is found in The History of Protestantism, the Jesuits. And he says, and I quote, "Thus to the general of the Jesuits the world lies naked and open. He sees by 1,000 eyes, he hears by 1,000 ears, and when he has a behest to execute, he can select the fittest agents from an innumerable host, all of whom are ready to do his bidding. the past history, the good and evil qualities of every member of the society, his talents, his dispositions, his inclinations, his tastes, his secret thoughts have all been strictly examined, minutely chronicled, and laid before the eyes of the general. It is the same as if he were present in person and had seen and conversed with each. They control all the supercomputer systems of the world, and all information about every human being, including every Jesuit, has been tabulated, recorded, and is available for study by the Black Pope, the Superior Jesuit General. This is how he has the inside information on everything. Everything that's happening in the world, he knows. I continue. All ranks from the nobleman to the day laborer, all trades from the opulent banker to the shoemaker and porter, all professions, from the stoled dignitary and the learned professor to the cowled mendicant, all grades of literary men, from the philosopher, the mathematician, and the historian to the schoolmaster and the reporter on the provincial newspaper, are enrolled in the society. The Jesuits are everywhere, performing every kind of function and job. Plain clothes. You'll never know who they are. Marshaled and in continual attendance before their chief stand this host, so large in numbers and so various in gifts. And this is quoted in 1878. Imagine now, people. Imagine now where the Jesuits are and how greater their power is and how greater their functions are and how widespread their numbers. It boggles the imagination and the mind. I continue. At his word. Whose word? The Black Pope, the Superior General of the Jesuits. At his word they go, and at his word they come, speeding over seas and mountains, across frozen steppes of burning plains, on his errand. There is no disguise the Jesuit will not wear, no art he will not employ, no motive he will not feign, no creed he will not profess, provided only he can acquit himself a true soldier in the Jesuit army and accomplish the work on which he has been sent forth. Unquote. That quote alone is enough to warn you and tell you who the Jesuits are and what they are capable of. Ignore it at your own peril. Quoted in 1878 by A.J. Wiley, who had an inside understanding on who the Jesuits were. Listen to this, the true attitude of Rome to all people. Take warning. The late Cardinal Manning, once an archdeacon in the Church of England, who became a convert to Rome, gave expression to the following strange claims. And I quote Cardinal Manning. I acknowledge no civil power. I am the subject of no prince. And I claim more than this. I claim to be the supreme judge and director of the consciences of men, of the peasants that till the fields, and of the prince that sits on the throne, of the household that makes laws for kingdoms. I am sole, last, supreme judge of what is right and wrong. Moreover, we declare, affirm, define, and pronounce it to be necessary to salvation to every human creature to be subject to the Roman pontiff. Unquote. Another insider telling us how it is. Do not ignore the warning. And this is taken from a magazine called The Tablet, October 9th, 1864. This is the real thinking and attitude of the Roman Catholic hierarchy. They hate humanity and are waiting to subjugate all men to Rome. And they will use whatever means it takes. Whatever level of force or violence, they will use it against anyone who refuses to bow the knee to Rome. And here's another quote. and I quote, "It is yours, right reverend fathers, to subjugate and to subdue, to bend and break the will of an imperious race, the will which, as the will of Rome of old, rules over nations and people, invincible and inflexible," unquote. And this is quoted in a publication called The Bible or the Church by Sir Robert Anderson, page 108, from 1908. This has always been the mind of Rome. Total conquest through Caesarian Rome in the beginning, and then as it morphed into Papal Rome, it is the Fourth World Empire that covertly rules all systems. And this is their mind. Jesuit aims and methodology. Okay, it's important to once again to remind you that there is a final goal that the Jesuits have been pursuing for 500 years. This goal is simple. I've stated it before. The completion of the temporal power of the Pope of Rome over the whole earth. And not only temporal, but also complete spiritual authority over all human beings. This was the goal of the Caesarian Roman Empire, and it is the same goal for the Papal Roman Empire. No difference. Except this empire is far more dangerous than the Roman Empire was. Prior to the Jesuits, between 476 AD and 1540 AD, the early church had apostatized into a pagan Roman Catholic pseudo-Christian cult and was already covertly manipulating kings through ecclesiastical authority and fear. The goal was and is power, both temporal and spiritual, over all earthly institutional authorities or kingdoms. The Roman Catholic cult uses any means at its disposal as a force of terror, the sword, to intimidate peoples into subservience to papal authority. The Pope openly declares he is the king of the earth and God himself. So in order to validate his authority and position, he must exercise rule over all kings and princes. Otherwise, what kind of a God would he be? What kind of God would he be if he couldn't even control all the nations of the earth? This has been achieved through the threat of assassination, revolution, and war of many kinds to any ruler who does not obey Rome. This consistent pattern of violence toward peaceful peoples is clearly recognizable in world history to any discerning student with eyes to see. All popes demand obedience to Rome, or else war will be visited upon those who refuse or resist. The methodology that Jesuits have employed is so simple, yet so effective that they have managed world conquest in 500 years. It is first infiltration via missionary operations, then subversion through education. Jesuit schools for the corruption of indigenous peoples, and finally, destruction through politics, agitation for revolution or civil war to divide and conquer oppositional groups and place themselves in the preeminent position of authority and control over governments from behind the scenes. 1, 2, 3, and it's game over for any target nation. This process takes time, but they never give up and are relentless in their savagery. Here is the Jesuit promise and threat, and I quote, and this is a quote from Francis Borgia, the third Jesuit superior general, going way back to the 1600s. And I quote, "We came in like lambs and will rule like wolves. We shall be expelled like dogs and will return like eagles." Unquote. Eagles. The eagle is everywhere. You can see it in emblems and logos worldwide, on flags. It is symbolic of Rome's authority. Always has been, always will be. Lambs are symbolic of innocence and purity, so the Jesuits feign or fake innocence, giving the appearance of religious piety or authenticity in order to deceive everybody as to their real motivations, which is to rule, dominate, and control all peoples and all systems. And that is the truth. Fascism, communism, and brutal dictators appearing suddenly in a nation are the telltale sign that the Jesuits are at work or in control already. The other clear sign is photo evidence of all world leaders paying homage to the Pope. Did you think these heads of state or celebrities traveled to the Vatican for a jolly Pope time, a cup of tea, just a nice visit to say hello to Mr. Pope, and a photo session for the glossy magazines? Are you kidding me? No. Leaders are commanded to appear before His unholiness and are given their orders to carry out. Failure to do so, and they are deposed or taken out. Brutal violence and cruelty are the trademarks of the Jesuits. Celebrities are rewarded financially for influencing and deceiving the masses through satanic cultural activities such as acting, music, literature, dance, and art. And there's many photos of celebrities bowing, shaking the hand, kissing the hand of the Pope. Why? Why? They are commanded to appear before the Pope and are rewarded for the wickedness that they achieve. They're rewarded for their wickedness. The whole world system, anyone who is elevated, has been rewarded for their wickedness. It is satanic inversion of the real way things should be. People should be rewarded for the good they're doing. In this world system, people that are elevated and go to the top to positions of elite authority or prominence are rewarded for their wickedness. That's why they're promoted. The system is wicked and promotes wicked people. That's how it works, people. Finally, it is important to remember that the Vatican is a sovereign city-state as of 1929. Ruled by a king. The Pope is a king of a sovereign city-state, has its own law code, its own military force, is immune to all prosecution, and rules the nations through its concordats, fake proxy governments, and intelligence agencies. It's all controlled by Rome, by the Black Pope, the superior general of the Jesuits. The Jesuits are a militant priestly order started for one reason only, to return total world control to the Pope. They will do anything to achieve that goal. Human life is worth nothing to them. They are liars and deceivers. They have controlled the Vatican since 1814 and the world since 1933. These are auspicious dates. Please check them out. In her book, The Black Pope, Mary F. Cusack, in 1896, and she was a converted nun, she left the Roman Catholic Church, she writes, and I quote, "The Jesuits are the only religious order in the Church of Rome which has lain under the ban of the Pope, or which has been expelled from any country because of its interference in politics. Hence we may expect to find that to obtain political power forms a main feature in the plans of the society." Unquote. There's another insider telling us exactly what the purpose of the Jesuits is: to take total political control from the inside. Wikipedia states about the suppression of the Society of Jesus that by the mid-18th century, the society had acquired a reputation in Europe for political maneuvering and economic success. The Jesuits are businessmen. Monarchs in many European states grew progressively wary of what they saw as undue interference from a foreign entity. Unquote. the Jesuits have caused no end of headache and heartache and misery to humanity. The Jesuit order were expelled 83 times from cities and countries worldwide between 1555 and 1931, according to Thomas J. Campbell, Jesuit. This is a Jesuit stating, an insider stating, that they had been expelled from countries and cities 83 times in history. J.E.C. Shepherd, a Canadian historian, wrote in 1987 that, and I quote, practically every instance of expulsion was for political intrigue, political infiltration, political subversion, and inciting to political insurrection, unquote. You can check these quotes yourself. These are people who have studied the Jesuits and understand and know what they have been involved in. You see, these are not my ideas. Okay, they were suppressed by Pope Clement XIV in 1773, who paid the price with his life. They killed him. The Jesuit in Gesetz, Jesuits law, was passed in 1872, banning all Jesuit institutions in the entire German Empire. Germany paid dearly for this, as the Jesuits orchestrated World War I and World War II in order to punish and crush the German Lutheran peoples. Any other nations that dared to expel or banish them were also punished in due course. The Jesuits never forget or forgive an affront to their power or control. Never. They'll wait hundreds of years to strike back. This is echoed in the statement of Jesuit online group Anonymous, who end their broadcast messages with the same quote, "We never forget, we never forgive." It's Jesuitical. When the Jesuits returned to power in 1814 in Europe, they were more powerful than ever, in control of the Vatican, continental Freemasonry, and many European governments. In 100 years, by 1914, they would orchestrate the First World War, taking vengeance on all their enemies. France was crushed and bloodied by the horrific French Revolution in 1789. This was repayment for being ousted in 1754. This revolution would then become the template used by the Jesuits in all successive world revolutions in Russia, China, Cuba, Cambodia, Mexico, etc., on and on and on. As the revolution was abating, and the Jesuits are the revolutionaries. As the revolution was abating, the Jesuits then raised up Napoleon to wreak havoc and destruction upon all of Europe, avenging Rome on its enemies. And I've written a blog about Napoleon and Hitler, which you can read at my website, darknessisfalling.com. Although Catherine I of Russia gave the Jesuits a safe haven in 1773 when they were suppressed, Tsar Alexander I exiled them in 1820. And less than 100 years later, they crushed the Russian people with their brutal communist revolution in 1917. Nothing to do with the Jews. These people were Masons, Freemasonic thugs that were imported into Russia, Lenin, Trotsky, et al., to overthrow the Russian Empire. Every country from which they were expelled later experienced revolution, civil war, slavery, or economic hardship after the Jesuits returned. The Portuguese Empire expelled them in 1759, the French Empire in 1764, the Spanish Empire in 1767, the Maltese in 1769, the Duchy of Parma in 1768, Poland-Lithuania in 1773, Austria-Hungary in 1782, Britain's New France in 1773, and Switzerland in 1847. Ask yourself, why would this happen if the Jesuits were just an innocuous religious group trying to do good? Why? Why would they be expelled? History records there was a massive reaction from kings and princes because the Jesuits were working hard to subvert and control sovereign authorities. They were a direct threat to be encountered with royal dissolution and expulsion, which is of course what happened on a massive scale. the account of the Spanish roundup of Jesuits from all its colonies and possessions worldwide in a single day at the exact same hour by Charles III is to be admired in the audacity of its planning and execution. Oh, that someone would stand up with the guts to do that today. But it'll never happen. They're all serving the Pope. Jesuit infiltration and conquest of Europe. The Jesuits, from their inception, understood the importance of maintaining control over the expanding European kingdoms for Rome and the threat of the Protestant Reformation to its very existence. As confessors to the kings and princes, they could steer these heads of state to accomplish their nefarious purposes, using militaries to destroy Rome's enemies, for example, Jews and Christians. Since the days of Charlemagne, the Roman Catholic Church understood that without a standing army, they of necessity had to usurp control over the forces of secular states. And this is what they've been doing. They control all world militaries through secular governments. Covertly they do this. They have not changed this tactic and still do the same today. All world militaries are controlled by the Jesuits, and in particular the USA, Britain, France, Germany through NATO, Russia, and China. Contrary to appearances and claims made in fake news, these countries are working together to achieve particular outcomes favorable to the Jesuits' long-term agenda. Today, all European countries are controlled by the European Union, which is a Jesuit organization. Rome dictates to the EU Parliament in Brussels its desires, and all countries must comply or face restrictions and penalties. Through unions, the Jesuits institute laws that override government policies and control trade, politics, health, culture, and education right across the world, on every continent, in every country. Note, Rome has been using the USA for more than 100 years to dominate the world militarily and monetarily with the US dollar. Total world hegemony since 1913, when they created the Federal Bank, the US Fed, and have effectively controlled world trade and currency using the US dollar, which is virtually worth nothing today. Jesuit infiltration and conquest of Russia. The Jesuits have attempted to destroy the Orthodox Church in Russia since their formation, as Rome must reign supreme as the center of Roman religion. As early as 1560, they attempted to poison Ivan IV, but failed, murdering his wife instead. Ivan was the great protector of the Orthodox Church and was a major hurdle to the Jesuits' plan of infiltrating and subverting Russia. Possibly the first Roman-trained Jesuit, Alexei Ladzinski, returned to Russia in the mid-1800s from Rome. Peter the Great expelled the Jesuits from all of Russia in 1723 because of their intrigues and was poisoned for his resistance to them. It was very difficult for the Jesuits to achieve any significant effect within the empire, even though they had been granted safe haven in 1776 by Catherine II, following their papal suppression in 1773. The Jesuits had to wait until 1812 and then use Napoleon and brute force. His army consisted of 680,000 men from without, in the hope of achieving their goal, even looting and burning Moscow. Alexander I refused to surrender, and Napoleon fled, treacherously abandoning his men to perish in the bitter winter snows. Yes, it was an act of treachery. It was done deliberately. With the estimated deaths of 570,000 soldiers, the prime youth of France were destroyed in the Russian snows deliberately by Napoleon. Alexander then led his army to Paris in pursuit of Napoleon and forced him to abdicate. He proposed a holy alliance between all the states of Europe, which only Great Britain, the Vatican, and the Turks rejected. Then, in conjunction with the Bible Society, he translated the Bible and spread it right across Russia. This incurred the rage of the Jesuits, who eventually poisoned Alexander in 1825, bringing the European alliance to an end. There is no alliance that will be allowed that Rome does not control. Never. From the death of Alexander I, the Jesuits had to wait more than 90 years for their opportunity to strike and take revenge on Russia. Tsar Alexander II was also assassinated in 1881 for his refusal to cooperate with the Jesuits and pressure to adopt their program for change. In 1917, they struck with a violent fury and brutal vengeance never seen in history. Under their puppets, Rasputin, Trotsky, Lenin, and then Stalin, the Jesuit communists would systematically take control of Russia, eliminate the royal family, and crush the Russian peoples, exterminating Jews, Christians, and any other perceived enemy. In the Siberian gulags, estimated at between 85 and 100 million souls were murdered, perished in Siberia. Think about it. This is the Jesuit mind. They have no compassion towards humanity. The Jesuits, using their invention of atheistic communism and Freemasonry as control mechanisms, have been completely in control of Russia since 1917. Jesuit infiltration and conquest of North America. Although it is implied but not directly stated, the first Jesuit agent in North America is undoubtedly Samuel de Champlain in 1604. Study of his explorations, contacts, and life reveal a Roman Catholic carrying out missions for European Roman Catholic business interests in what is now the USA and Canada. Riding the fur trade inland after Champlain, small numbers of Jesuits had early contact with indigenous Americans but kept their activities below the radar in the established American colonies. Covert, that's how they work, covertly, through infiltration. In 1760, there were only a few dozen Jesuits extant, and even these kept a low profile. John Carroll, former Jesuit, who lived between 1735 and 1815, became the first Catholic bishop in the young republic and founded Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. in 1789. Today, this is the Jesuit Control Center for the USA and the true seat of U.S. power. Make no mistake about it. All power in the USA comes from Georgetown University. Most prominent U.S. statesmen and politicians today are Catholic, and many are Jesuit trained at Georgetown. Even the White House is named after Andrew White, a Jesuit who donated the land for the building. Many Americans do not know this. Washington was originally known as Little Rome and was built by Jesuit-controlled Freemasons according to occult principles and symbology. The Jesuits would attempt many times to usurp control over American banking, finally succeeding in 1913, taking control of American money with the secret passing of the Federal Reserve Bank Bill. The Jesuits would also assassinate at least 6 American presidents, 4 by gunshot and 2 from poisoning, as well as some important statesmen such as John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Monroe. Personally, I think the list is extensive and could be as many as 14 presidents, although many sudden deaths are explained away and not identified as poisonings. Jesuits love assassination by poisoning. The Jesuits started the Civil War, attempting to divide the young nation and cause the Great Plains Wars, resulting in the destruction of the indigenous tribes and total destitution and subjugation of the American Indian on miserable reservations. It's all the work of the Jesuits. The usurpation of Indian lands was accomplished covertly through betrayal and treachery by Roman Catholic Union Army General Philip Sheridan and Peter de Smet, that wicked Belgian Jesuit. Check out Peter de Smet. This is one wicked man responsible for the destruction, the betrayal and destruction of the American Indian tribes. By 1933, the Jesuits had taken control of the country using their agent, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the USA and 33-degree Freemason. Passing the Emergency War Powers Act and amending the Trading with the Enemy Act, 1917, in that same year, power was given to Congress to virtually pass any legislation, executive orders, they're called executive orders, incrementally enslaving the American people by removing their freedoms and classing them as adversaries or enemies of the state, which still stands today and of which the vast majority of Americans are blissfully yet dangerously ignorant. Essentially, America has been a communist country since 1933, with a dictatorship in Washington. John F. Kennedy, although a Roman Catholic and a Knight of Columbus, defied Rome and was assassinated in 1963. He had dared to threaten to dismantle the Jesuit CIA, print his own American banknotes, and stop the Jesuits' war in Vietnam. Since then, all U.S. presidents have been puppets of the Jesuits, taking orders from the Archbishop of New York, who is controlled from Georgetown University. That's the power structure in the USA. Today, U.S. politics is a farce. Voting is a hoax. The two-party system is a fraud. Doesn't exist. Both sides are controlled by the Jesuits. Freedoms are disappearing fast. The Jesuits are dismantling the once powerful U.S. economy piece by piece. Poverty and homelessness are growing rapidly. A blind eye is turned to illegal immigration, and justice has been inverted. There are more than 800 FEMA Nazi-style prison camps across the USA ready to take dissident prisoners once armed civil insurrection occurs and federal martial law is initiated countrywide. It's going to happen, folks. It's happening now, incrementally. The Jesuits today control the USA, Canada, and Mexico 100%. Don't fool yourself. Do not fool yourself. We're living in a communist, world communist system, soft communism. Dear reader, dear listener, no matter where you are, what country you call home, your government is controlled by the Jesuits of Rome. You are living under the directives of Rome's UN world government and are subject to all its systems, whether you recognize it or not. This is the present world reality and awful truth. Jesuits at all levels, whether novices or fourth vow veterans, have unwittingly or knowingly contributed to the building on all continents the superstructure of the fourth beast described in the book of Daniel, chapter 7. You can read it yourself. For 500 years, with blood, sweat, and tears, Jesuits labored in hostile environments, working and dying for what they believed to be the kingdom of God. What a deception. What a delusion. They died for nothing. They died for serving Satan. They were and are, in fact, building the world beast system described also in Revelation chapter 17. Loyola's satanic vision has been realized through his multi-generational army of mindless, obedient, Jesuit automatons. That's what they are. Satan's short hour of triumph in total world communism is fast approaching. All world political, military, educational, cultural, religious, and business systems have been brought under the control of the Jesuit Superior General, or Black Pope, the most powerful man in the world. It's an absolute fact. It is just a matter of time before financial and religious freedoms are erased and the world chooses to worship the one world Antichrist, God-man dictator as God. It's coming. It's happening. No one will stop what is now in place. No person or group. The freedoms that have been will never return. Jesus Christ will destroy this beast system when he returns to earth soon. There are only two responses anyone can make in the face of this horrible truth. Join the Jesuits' world satanic system and die eternally, or repent of your sins and begin to serve God obediently from the heart. There is no third choice. There is only good and evil. Jesus Christ declared in John chapter 6 and verse 40, "And this is the will of him that sent me, that every one which sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day." There's the promise of the resurrection from the dead for all those who believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ also declared in John chapter 14 and verse 6, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father, God, except through me." There's no other path. There's no other way. Jesus Christ is the only way to eternal salvation and eternal life. Think about it. Jesus Christ is the only escape from what is coming, people. God promises to save all those who put their trust in him, regardless of what happens to them. He is the only true hope of man. If you aren't a Christian, then I urge you to find God before it's too late. Time is running out for mankind. This may be the last warning you receive, so I urge you, I really do, I urge you to seek God now. Do it now. Thank you for listening, and may God open up your eyes to the truth of this evil world system. Please share this video with others so they too might wake up from their sleep before it's too late. I hope to see you in the next video.